Hello and welcome to Pilbology, and this is a beginner's level video from the beginners section of the YouTube channel. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and have a look at the other videos in the library. Now, today we're going to focus briefly on pronunciation tips. Often I find there's a little bit of confusion in how things are pronounced because they're so different from our native tongue. So whether your native language is English or not, the pronunciation in German or in any other foreign language is obviously going to be slightly different. And German is no exception to that rule. So there are certain letters in the alphabet which we need to have a look at to make sure that we understand how to pronounce them in German. The first example that I want to touch on is the J. And in the alphabet, this is the yot. Yot. Now, the thing to note here is that it sounds like a Y. Y. And that's because it is for us English. So a yo-yo, for example, would be a yo-yo, not a jojo. That would just be silly. So, the J is a y sound. So, another example would be a friend of mine called Johannes. Johannes. The J is not Johannes, but Johannes. Right. So, let's move Johannes over here. Excuse me. The next letter I would like to look at is the Z. Now, I've put a little line through mine. You don't have to, but that's a Z. The Z, the pronunciation of the Z in German is a TS sound, as if you're letting air out of a tire. Okay. An example of this would be the number 10. 10. 10. 10. Or a zigzag, which in German is zick, zack. Zick, zack. Right, so it's important to remember the Z sound is a TS, not a Z. If you say vier or wir sehen instead of 14, then it's a big taboo, which brings us on to our next letter. The next culprit is the letter V, the English V. Now in German, this is a vowel in the alphabet, a vowel. And as you can guess, it has an F pronunciation. So a good example of this would be Vogel. Vogel is the word for bird. Der Vogel. Der Vogel. Pronounced as an F. You will also see an advert for a particular car manufacturer which has this symbol. This is not in actual fact Volkswagen. It is Volkswagen. Which brings us very cleanly, this is getting good, very cleanly onto our next letter, which is, you guessed it, a W. The W is actually a double V, if you look at it. Now, that's a good way to remember it, to try not to write too much for curvy, because it is in actual fact a V sound. The pronunciation is the English V. So, I'll give you a couple of examples, color coordinated as usual. So, das. Wasser. Now the S and the T, back in the day of the Anglo-Saxons, they were interchangeable. So if you stuck a T in here, you would obviously have water. Das Wasser. Das Wasser. Another one is the word Wagen, which is der. Wagen. Which, as you saw from up here, would be a Volkswagen. In fact, let's just make sure that's clear. Volks, as in belonging to the people. Wagen, it was called the people's car. Now, Wagen is quite similar to wagon. It's where it came from. We didn't have cars back when the word Wagen came out. There is also the word das Auto for car. So, that is the W. Let's merge these crazy kittens together and get them out of the way. Because the next one that's coming up is the pronunciation of this combination of letters and this combination of letters. Now, in German, we don't have a st sound at the beginning of a word. Okay, so this word here is not stop, but stop, as if there's a little invisible H in here. Stop. So it kind of goes without saying that if we wanted to write the word sport, there is no sp, so instead it's Sport. Sport. Okay, so sp, again, as if there's an invisible H. All these little tiny individual rules, you don't need to know. This will just simply come through practice, practice, practice. All we're doing here is analysing in a quick overview, these pronunciations. Okay, so if you don't get it straight away, don't stress. That's why it's a video. You can pause it, rewind it, go back over it in your own time. The next one. Let's move you out the way. In fact, let's create some more space. The next one I want to have a look at is a combination, and I will write this out. It's the EU sound. The EU, which is actually more of an oi sound. Freund. Freund. Now, try to remember that this D is pronounced a little bit like a T. Alright? Freund. Freund. So the EU sound is an oi. The next one I want to look at is the SCH, or H, depending on where you're from in England. Now, this could have, let's use this example. You could have die Schule. Die Schule. You could have die Schlange. You could also have der Schuh. Okay, and all of these, obviously with a capital S. Okay, so the pronunciation here is sh. You could be forgiven for thinking it's an SH. Okay, so Schule, school, Schlange is a snake, and Schuh is a shoe, funnily enough. Right, so let's shrink you out the way and plonk you over here. Right, and the final one that I'm going to touch on is here, house. Das Haus. The AU sound is an ow sound, not an oi sound as you saw over here in Freund, but ow, as in ow, you've just stood on my toe. House. Das Haus. Right, that's just a quick overview of a few of them. If you look at the alphabet video, and I'll try and put a link, if I remember, I'll put a link to the alphabet video in the description box. Go and have a look at that because it looks at the other letters in the alphabet. For example, the O, the U and the A, which have an umlaut above them, and how that changes the pronunciation as well. Few little rules, very important to sounding more fluent in your German. So don't forget, practice, practice, practice. If you found the video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for the full library of videos from Pilbology. See you next time.